So my work is really about global megatrends and how we're going to adapt to them. A megatrend is a trend that's so significant and with enough force behind it to disrupt our basic assumptions and alter the trajectory of human futures. How are we going to deal with the economic shifts, with growing mental health burdens that have been recorded in every developing economy, with technological acceleration that can work for us and work against us? And then, of course, how are we going to think about and address climatic change? If we understand that, as Yo-Yo Ma said, the language of disruption means that we're not living in a safe time, then we can understand that the arts, culture, and nature can be magnified and become tools of resilience once we recognize that we need the arts and culture to help us adapt. This is a very whimsical piece by Niels Norman, a British artist. It's called the Gerard Winstanley Radical Gardening Space, Reclamation Mobile Field Center and Weather Station European Chapter. It's essentially a trailer that's attached to a bike that has books on urban gardening. It has a solar panel. It has a printer, and it has everything you need to learn about how to grow food if cities are affected as damagingly by climate change as is predicted.
Currently, at least in Europe, we are very afraid of robots. So robots, are the enemies, and we don't know, what are we facing when we think about robots. So do we want to live together with robots? Will they replace us? Do we trust them? Do we love them? What's our relationship? And I was Googling a bit different projects on design fiction. And this is one from Vienna, a recent one. And they are really cute. So they are kind of tiny little robots, the summer scouts they are called, and they measure emotional contentness in Vienna. And so they are a kind of reflection and ironic view on robots, because they look so tiny and they are so practical in your everyday life. And maybe this, changes your perception of what a robot can be or should be. And there's a lot of debate also whether we could draw a line between robot and human. And people, when I'm working on, for example, wearable computing in my lab, people then say, oh, no, this is the technology and that's my body. And, this is technology and that's nature. And that's nonsense. When you also should feel like very anxious or something, this is a belt with a little motor that pulls tight. So you feel this, so you cannot breathe anymore. And so this is also kind of giving back this bodily experience of very distinct reactions that you should have, but in a digital world, you are losing these kinds of reactions, bodily reactions.
So I work a lot with wearables and physical computing and motion capture and all that stuff, and I use it a lot in live events. I was doing a show for Isaiah in Dubai, and it was a live show, and the dancer is wearing a gyroscope. So when she moves, these graphics move around with her. And the start of the second act, the sensor crapped out, and the next thing I see on stage, I see my Mavericks desktop. How do we design it so they can still get the idea and not walk away completely empty-handed?
You would maybe vote for a kind of plan B, option B version all the time, no? So that you could switch, or that you could also bring forward the idea in a non-technical way, maybe.
Despite the presence of data and despite the presence of good design, when it comes to the macro scale, when societies have to make decisions in today's world, they end up making irrational decisions. How do we use the data that we have and the design facilities that we have to convince people to make rational decisions that are in their interests and avoid conflict in the world, so to speak?
I think that we will come to a point where decision-making has one component that's really data-based and that's evidence-based, that's a quantitatively valid decision based on a lot of data that we've got available. But I think that this would be just one component of a decision-making process. And the other one that we should really value very much is the the qualitatively based decision making, the value based decision making, the experience based decision making, the knowledge based decision making. And I think if we've got those two components that come together, we might come to better decisions. So I don't believe in either or.